The rain had stopped hours ago, but the city streets still shimmered under the glow of streetlights, reflecting puddles that looked like tiny galaxies. Marissa Cole, the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in Los Angeles, had been working late again, reviewing reports and quarterly projections. But tonight something tugged at her curiosity, something that didn't belong on any spreadsheet or sales chart. She had seen him earlier that day, a mechanic in a small, almost invisible garage tucked between high-rise buildings. He was a single dad, she had learned, fixing cars with precision and care, never rushing, always patient. But what really caught her attention was the way he moved. Not just around engines and wrenches, but around life itself. As if he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders yet refused to let it crush him. Unable to resist, Marissa decided to follow him after hours. Her luxury sedan glided silently through the city streets, keeping a discreet distance as he locked up his garage at 900 p.m. sharp. He didn't head home, as she expected. Instead, he drove slowly to a modest neighborhood on the outskirts of town, a place where streetlights flickered and the hum of life felt quieter, almost peaceful. Before I continue, if you believe in kindness and second chances, make sure to like this video, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Touch of Kindness. Your support helps us share more stories that remind us why humanity still matters. Marissa watched from her car as he parked, got out, and unloaded something from his trunk. It wasn't tools, and it wasn't car parts. He was carrying a stack of cardboard boxes, neatly labeled, as if each contained something fragile, something important. He walked with determination but also a softness that made her chest tighten. Curiosity propelled her forward, and she followed at a safe distance. At first, she thought he might be making a late-night delivery, perhaps for charity or a side hustle. But as she trailed him down an alleyway behind a cluster of apartment buildings, she realized she had no idea where he was going. The alley opened to a small courtyard, dimly lit, where a few children's toys were scattered around. And then she saw him kneel down. Under the dim light, she could see the faint outline of 3 small children, shivering in blankets too thin for the chill of the night. The mechanic, who she had only known as Aaron, a man in his early 40s with tired eyes and calloused hands, gently lifted a little girl into his arms. She was barely 5, her hair tangled, her face streaked with tears and dirt. He whispered something to her, rocking her softly, while the other 2 children, an older boy and a toddler, cuddled close, seeking warmth and comfort. Marissa's heart clenched. She had expected late-night errands or mundane tasks. She had not expected this glimpse into the quiet heroism of a man who spent his nights not on himself, but ensuring that these children, none of them his own by circumstance, were fed, safe and loved. She watched as Aaron opened the boxes from his trunk. Inside were simple necessities: canned food, clothes, blankets, and little handwritten notes of encouragement. He distributed the items carefully, making sure each child had something that would make them feel special. The scene struck her with an intensity she had never felt in her boardroom. Here was a man who had every reason to be bitter about life. Single, financially struggling, working tirelessly during the day to fix cars that were often more trouble than they were worth. But instead of despair, he offered love. Not to one child, not to his own, but to anyone who needed it. Marissa's mind raced back to her own childhood, the loneliness she sometimes felt despite her family's wealth. She thought about the board meetings, the endless emails, and the constant pressure to maintain an image of perfection. And here, in the shadows of a forgotten courtyard, was a reminder that life wasn't about power or recognition. It was about compassion. Aaron stayed with the children until almost 2 a.m. He sang softly, told stories and made sure each one had something to eat. Finally, he tucked them into blankets inside a small community shelter that he had convinced to stay open late for nights like these. Exhausted, he walked back to his car, drenched in sweat despite the chill, his hands trembling from fatigue and worry. Marissa's chest ached at the sight. She realized she had been following a man whose dedication went far beyond the mechanics of his daily life. He was repairing hearts, mending lives, and doing it quietly, without anyone knowing, without anyone applauding. She didn't approach him immediately. Instead, she drove home in silence, her mind replaying every detail. She thought about how society often celebrated wealth, accolades, and status, yet overlooked those whose work was invisible but monumental in impact. By the next morning, she couldn't shake the need to do something. Not as a CEO, not as a wealthy executive, but as a human being. Aaron arrived at the garage the next day, still tired, still humble, and still focused on helping every car that came through his doors. Marissa waited until he finished with a customer and then stepped inside, her usual confidence tempered by awe. She introduced herself simply, without the trappings of her title, and thanked him for his quiet, tireless service to others. She told him she had watched him the night before, that what he did was extraordinary. Aaron's face reddened, his eyes wide with disbelief. He had never sought recognition for his acts of kindness, never expected gratitude. "I'm just doing what I can," he said softly. "These kids, they deserve more than life has given them. I just want them to feel safe." Marissa smiled, feeling tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She realized that life had a way of surprising us, of teaching lessons when we least expect them. In that moment, she made a promise to herself: she would use her influence, her resources, to help amplify his work. She would not let Aaron's efforts go unnoticed, and more importantly, she would remind the world that true greatness often lives in quiet humility. By the end of the week, the garage became a hub of hope. With Marissa's help, Aaron was able to expand his after-hours work, providing more meals, blankets, and mentorship to children who needed it most. The story of a single dad mechanic who gave everything he had for others began to spread, touching hearts across the city. People who had never noticed him before were now contributing, volunteering, and supporting his mission. Marissa often reflected on that rainy night, remembering the glimmer of determination in Aaron's eyes, the gentle care he showed to children whose lives had been marked by hardship. She realized that her role in life wasn't just to lead companies. It was to notice, to act, and to honor the quiet heroes among us. And Aaron, the single dad mechanic, reminded her that kindness was the strongest engine of all, capable of changing lives in ways money and status never could. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion and quiet courage can light up the darkest nights, please engage with this video. Comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness. Your actions help us bring more stories of hope, resilience, and the incredible impact one person can make. Before we end, take a moment to reflect on the unsung heroes in your own life. The people who quietly give, who silently love, and who keep the wheels of kindness turning even when no one is watching. They deserve our recognition, our gratitude, and our support. And as you go about your day, remember, sometimes the greatest acts of courage and love happen in the shadows, long after the world has gone to sleep.